The April 10 clashes in Bangkok had taken high casualties, with 25 dead and more than 800 injured. In the aftermath, both sides took stock. As troops returned to their barracks and honed their riot control skills, a memorial was held for the protesters killed. No one believed it would be the last. But the deaths had done little to soften the resolve of the protesters as they erected barricades of tyres and bamboo around their camp.
The red shirts are using whatever they can get their hands on to build this wall, including bringing in thousands of bamboo sticks. But clearly some of them have a dual purpose.
The authorities moved to arrest several red shirt leaders holed up at a Bangkok hotel. Undignified may be, but the embarrassment was shared by the government as TV cameras captured the escape and beamed it around the world. Emboldened, the red shirts prepared to leave their camp and once again rally around the capital. Mindful of the recent death toll, authorities dispatched riot police, not armed troops, to stop them. But then a fresh headache for the People's Alliance for Democracy, or Yellow Shirts, threatened to take matters into their own hands if order was not restored.
If the government doesn't solve this within 7 days, we want all to wear yellow and come out and fight for real democracy. We will win.
With both sides ratcheting up the rhetoric, armed troops returned to Bangkok's streets. With the stakes rising, the red shirts reinforced barricades and armed themselves with homemade weapons. While some red shirts prepared to make a stand, others descended on the UN offices in Bangkok, pleading for international peacekeepers to intervene. Despite UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon's calls for calm, an anti-red shirt street protest gave way to more violence, with 1 death and 75 injured. Bangkok streets were now a dangerous place to wear a red shirt. Many now swapped their symbolic dress in an effort to avoid detection. A defiant Prime Minister once again took to the airwaves, refusing to resign.
I've never rejected a way to find a solution to this political crisis. But we should understand that the way to find a solution should not be based on terrorism or on using violence or any threat.
As more troops were sent in, the message was clear. With politicians unable to break an increasingly volatile impasse, many wondered whether Thailand's King Bhumibol Adulyadej might intercede as he had in the past. But he didn't, and the violence started to spread. A convoy of 2,000 red shirts tried to take their demonstrations to Bangkok's suburbs, but troops quickly moved in to contain them. A multi-lane freeway became a battle zone, with 1 soldier dead and at least 18 protesters wounded.
What started out as a standoff between the security forces and the red shirt protesters who were trying to get to their destination has now descended into a street battle with both sides firing upon each other.
As the crisis moved into its 8th week, the Prime Minister met with his cabinet. Shortly afterwards, he offered to dissolve Parliament and hold elections in November on one condition: that the red shirts leave their camp in the centre of Bangkok and cease all protest action. The red shirts agreed, but also had one condition: that the Deputy Prime Minister face criminal charges.
We will end our demonstration and start the peace process the day that Suthep Thaugsuban turns himself in.
The government refused and withdrew its offer. Any hopes of peace quickly dissipated. Power and water to the red shirts' camp were cut off, and the protesters suffered casualty. Army officer Major General Katia Sawadipon, the red shirts' military advisor, was shot in the head whilst talking to journalists. Violence flared once again. In running skirmishes across Bangkok, 7 more people died. As the army circled and blocked off a bridge, the red shirts also set up roadblocks and continued to arm themselves.
Well, this has been typical of the clashes we have seen with the red shirts coming out of their protest site to confront the military at the moment. It's quite an eerie calm. The troops have descended upon this area from many directions at the moment. They still feel there is a threat here from the red shirts.
In another televised address, the Prime Minister said the army was committed to ending the protest with force if necessary. He accused extremists of infiltrating the red shirts' ranks. Over the next 24 hours, up to 30 more people were killed on the streets of Bangkok.
These soldiers have been here all day facing off with the red shirts protesters. With the situation intensifying, they're digging in, trying to defend this position and trying to prevent the protesters from advancing down this road. There's an eerie standoff between the military and the red shirt supporters that's gripping Bangkok at the moment. There's isolated incidents of fire and basic incidents like this of burning tyres and nothing greater. But the question is, when is something going to give, and what will that be, and what will the consequences be? At the moment, Bangkok is living under a shadow.
The next day, a gun battle erupted in Lumpini Park, where thousands of protesters had gathered. 11 people were killed, including a soldier.
This is now one of the main front lines in this battle. About 100 metres down the road are the Thai troops. They've sealed off this road and are firing at times towards these protesters, but highlighting the problem that the military and the government now have. This is very much red shirt territory.
Then, on May 19, as dawn broke over Bangkok, came the decisive action many had feared.
There is now a APC going through, has just gone through the red shirt barricade. You're about to see another one, I think, here. So the first armoured personnel...
The next day, the Prime Minister took to the airwaves and said order had been restored.
We recognize that as we move ahead, there are huge challenges ahead of us, particularly the challenge of overcoming the divisions that have occurred in this country.
After this dark chapter, it's clear that Thailand's wounds long after the final shot is fired.